Sorry about that. Hi, folks. We are live, and we are the Non-Prophets, and we still haven't found what we're looking for either, which is namely the host of the show today. This is kind of a crazy way to start off, because today is supposedly the first day when we are going out live on freethoughtradio.com, but we currently don't know whether we're going out live, and I'm the producer, Russell Glasser, and it's hard for me to, and usually I'm doing all the computer stuff, so if I weren't busy doing this, I'd be monitoring the situation at Free Thought Radio. But if you hear us today, join us on our chat. First of all, check out our website. It is www.atheist-community.org/radio show. Again, that's www.atheist-community.org/radio show, and that will tell you how to get into the chat room where people are currently interacting with the show. So we're the Non-Prophets. We've been on the Atheist Network for some 4 years now, and it's been terrific, but they've been sort of moving away from their radio broadcasts lately, and so here we are, Free Thought Radio. We are a group of atheists from the Atheist Community of Austin, which is a terrific atheist group. And although I don't have my usual host with me, he'll be in a few minutes. That's Jeff D, and I have a few friends with me. Here's Mary McManamy.
Hi, gang.
We broadcast from her house. And here is Matt Dillahunty.
Hello, everybody.
We are a group of atheists with sort of a liberal bent who basically come on your radio or your computer, rather, every 2 weeks and chat about the news of the day, what's been going on in the last 2 weeks, crazy fundamentalists, and pretty much whatever else comes to mind.
Supreme Court.
What? Did they do something this week? I can't remember.
Oh, have we got scads of news about that?
Yeah. So, does anyone have an actual news story about that, or do we want to kick off with something else?
I don't know. Maybe we should kick off with something else. I have a feeling that Jeff's going to want to hit on this when he gets in, and
okay.
Not much point in repeating things too many times. I'm hoping he'll be here any minute. But yeah, it was an interesting week with regard to the Supreme Court on a number of decisions, and with a retirement announcement coming right at the tail end of the week. So.
Yep.
Yeah. And the Ten Commandments monument decision here in our own hometown of Austin, Texas.
Yes. Now, what was going on there? And I don't have a news story because I assumed someone else would print it. What's been going on there is that a fellow named Thomas Van Orden has been campaign, and we've met him. He's actually spoken to our group on one occasion.
Several, actually.
Several occasions.
Yeah.
Thomas Van Orden has been leading a lawsuit against a big honkin' granite monument that appears on the side of our state capitol. It is referred to as the Ten Commandments, although actually, funny story here, they're not numbered, and when you count them, there's 11.
How did that happen?
How did that happen? Well, there are two sets of Ten Commandments, actually. I think 3, even.
3.
Yeah.
There's the Catholic, Protestant, and Jewish.
Unless you count the completely different part of the Bible that's referred to as the Ten Commandments. But for the canonical Ten Commandments, there are 3 known sets. The Catholic version actually, strangely enough, leaves out that bit about not creating graven images. You can see why they would.
Because the Vatican would be very boring if there weren't any graven images there.
Exactly. But they split the commandment about not covering your neighbor's wife or your neighbor's stuff or your neighbor's ass or your neighbor's wife's ass is 2 commandments. Uh-huh. Whereas the Protestant version is don't covet stuff, and that's all together. So designed by a committee, the thing that appears on the Capitol lawn and is now declared constitutional has 11 commandments, which is to say they have the graven images one, and they split up the last two. And here's our host, Jeff D.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, welcome.
Do you want to take a few minutes for you guys to yell at me for being late?
You suck.
I noticed we have no Dennis either. Is he coming?
Yes, he is.
Oh.
I mean, I assume. I asked.
You didn't call him?
No.
Oh.
But he always comes.
He's always before me lately.
Yeah.
Usually. Well, we can talk about this stuff off the air.
Well, if he's not here, I won't have to grab his microphone whenever I want to jump in.
That's
I can
true,
just be
too.
here.
Did you do an introduction and everything, or should I take it from here?
It was a terrible introduction.
A terrible introduction.
No, it wasn't.
He did fine.
But we ought to
You
make
said
sure
it's the
that
non-profits?
Jeff, you don't know yet that, well, you should know, but supposedly we're on Free Thought Radio today. I haven't been able to keep an eye on the chat room so they can tell me whether we
You can
are or
look
not.
now.
Okay.
Hi, everybody in the chat
Don't
room.
talk.
Sorry I'm late. Anybody there able to confirm that we are in fact going out on Free Thought Radio today? Because that would be cool.
I'll let you know.
All right. Well, I'm asking them.
Well, they'll hear you in like 2 minutes.
Right. And
'cause-
they'll see you're
'cause there's a
typing
big
now.
lag.
So. Okay. So we had an introduction, and what do we have for news? Anybody have any kind of news at all?
Well, we started off with the Supreme Court since, there's all kinds of news coming out of the Supreme Court.
Did Amanda borrow this from you guys?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm doing a non-show thing. Take that back. Supreme Court, yes. Wacky, huh?
Yeah. I'm
The Ten Commandments are... that posting the Ten Commandments is legal outside the government buildings, but on government land, but illegal inside government buildings.
Well,
And the difference would be...
That's not what the precedent is, because the ruling had nothing to do with whether it was inside or outside.
Really?
It's incidental.
Really?
Yeah. The four justices who ruled in favor of leaving the commandments up in both cases were, of course, Rehnquist, Scalia, Kennedy, and Thomas.
Of course.
And they all pretty much said, yep, they're religious, but we don't care. That's fine. There's nothing that says that there can't be religious displays on government property.
Yeah.
The four who opposed in both cases were O'Connor, Ginsburg, Souder, and Stevens.
Uh-huh.
And the one who decided to flip-flop back and forth between the two cases was Justice Breyer. And it's his opinions which are going to be the most important, because I think basically everything that came out of the Supreme Court on Monday is going to be largely disregarded in future First Amendment cases. Justice Breyer disagreed with the majority to an extent, because he made the case that the Ten Commandments monument outside of our state capitol building was a predominantly secular display.
Bullshit.
That's what I thought. He also invoked, essentially, a grandfather clause, which doesn't exist anywhere, in saying that this monument stood there for 40 years without anybody complaining, while the one in Kentucky caused complaints and other stuff right from the get-go.
So what? What does that have to do with anything?
Well,
we have no principle in this country that if you get away with violating the Constitution for long enough, then it's okay. Then it becomes okay.
Yeah. That's
what is this crap?
He actually kind of does a circular argument in here. To quote him from his opinion, he says, "Here the tablets have been used as part of a display that communicates not simply a religious message, but a secular message as well. The circumstances surrounding the display's placement on the Capitol grounds and its physical setting suggest that the state itself intended the latter, non-religious aspect of the tablet's message to predominate. The monument's 40-year history on the Texas state grounds indicate that has been its effect." And he's basically saying, I think they did it for predominantly secular reasons, and because nobody complained,
Bullshit.
that must be true.
Bullshit!
Yeah. I've shook my head so many times reading, and he did the most amazing legal gymnastics in order to rationalize his ability to go one way in one case and one way in the other. It was, I don't know, baffling. I am, however, encouraged because Justice Stevens, who may not be my favorite justice, was pretty blunt and clear in his opinion, his dissenting opinion, on the Texas monument. And he says, quote, "The sole function of the monument on the grounds of Texas State Capitol is to display the full text of one version of the Ten Commandments. The monument is not a work of art, does not refer to any event in the history of the state. It is significant because and only because it communicates the following message: I am the Lord thy God, and the rest of the commandments.
Right.
Viewed on its face, Texas's display has no purported connection to God's role in the formation of Texas or the founding of our nation, nor does it provide the reasonable observer with any basis to guess that it was erected to honor any individual or organization. The message transmitted by Texas's chosen display is quite plain. This state endorses the divine code of the Judeo-Christian God.
Yeah, but that's the dissenting opinion.
Yeah.
So how much is that worth?
Well, it's encouraging because somebody is actually willing to say and get it in the court record what should be, pretty different.
Yeah, but, Bush has got a opening to put a Supreme Court justice in now, and he'll almost certainly have another one very soon.
Yeah, we were just about to get to that because, Friday, Sandra Day O'Connor announced that she was going to be retiring. As soon as she could get a replacement.
I hated the timing on that. It's like it happened during the week when Air America decided to go on vacation.
Yeah.
And all their shows were in best ofs.
Yeah, well, July weekend.
Unfreaking amazing.
I'd like to interject a couple of things.
Yeah?
First of all, it has been confirmed that we are going out live over Free Thought Radio.
Hi, I want to say hello to any new listeners we may have at freethoughtradio.com.
Yes.
Where are we doing our chat room now? Do we even want to say?
I'll get into that.
Okay.
Second of all, today is July 2nd, 2005. I said we were live, but I failed to specify when. So if today is not July 2nd, 2005, we are not live. But if it is, you can go to our chat. However, the correct information for the chat is not on the on our website. Currently, we're still using Atheist Network site,
and we feel terrible about it.
Yeah,
but we're lazy and we haven't found a new chat room.
I've got a suggestion for where to go next.
Okay.
But let's see. So in order to get there, you need some kind of IRC client, like do a Google search for MIRC. And what you want to do is go to irc.atheistnetwork.com:6667 and join the chat channel pound atheist _network.
Right.
In the future, I will have correct information on our show site, which is atheist-community.org/radio show, soon to be www.nonprofitsradio.com. And and check the site next time we're on the air, and there should be better instructions for how to get to a different chat site. Okay?
Cool. Yeah, we have been running a live online chat in parallel with our live broadcasts pretty much since the beginning.
Entirely since the beginning.
And we think it's a nice adjunct to the show.
We save the chat logs on the
yes, and then we post
side by side with the MP3 audio.
Right. So if you want, you can read along with what people were saying in chat while you're listening to streaming version.
And right now, Sean Souza of Free Thought Radio is in the chat room with us.
Hi, Sean Souza.
Sean, and thank you for helping us get through all this.
We're thrilled to be here.
Yes,
we're thrilled to be anywhere on the internet. So now it's you guys.
Yeah.
All right. So we're missing the co-host Denis Loubet.
If in the future, if you're not listening right now at this location, go to freethoughtradio.com and click on listen.
Right, and our show is going to be live
every 2 weeks, but there'll also be reruns periodically.
Right, live every other week. The July 2nd, this is a live week from 2 to 3:30 Central Time. Adjust as necessary for whatever part of the world you're listening from. I'm going to place a call here to our co-host Denis Loubet.
Ooh.
Live on the air.
That makes great radio.
Nobody's going to hear Dennis's side of things, though. My phone is not big enough to get picked up. You guys could say some news or something while we're waiting. Russell, did you bring news?
Just play like hold music.
Dennis? Hello, Dennis? Dennis? I can hear you, Dennis. Talk.
Oh, hello.
We miss you, Dennis.
Dennis, this is Jeff. You can't hear a word. This is interesting because Dennis is neither at the show nor aware that he should be at the show. And when I called him just now, I heard his voice, but he couldn't hear me. Oh. Let's try one more time, shall we?
Fun.
This will make even more great radio. Okay. You know, if I get upset enough, I may just give the phone number out. La 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 la. It's ringing.
It's one way to find out exactly how many people are listening by the number of calls. So, continuing on with the Supreme Court's issues.
Dennis. Hello. God. He can't hear me. All right, well, that's amazing. I'm just going to hang up on him, and he can puzzle out what's happening on his own. So, yeah, let's do news. We were talking about the Ten Commandments thing.
Yeah. Well, if you have more
I know that, once again, you know, it's one of these things that has happened that liberal and progressive folks like us are upset about, but it is sort of a thrill to watch the way that right-wingers are also pissed off about it.
Yeah, this is a decision, or jointly, these are decisions which aren't going to really please anybody, and they knew it. And Justice Breyer even mentioned it several times, that he was, you know, he goes into detail about how unfortunate it is and how bad he feels that the court's sending a conflicting message, yet he's the one who's sending the conflicting message.
Uh-huh. Good grief. They're just desperate. Those guys are desperate to not be responsible for following through on the clear intent of the founders. They are desperate not to get, you know, not to live up to that and take the heat.
Well, Justice Scalia has called himself an originalist, and he's one of a number of people, including justices, who believe that the only proper interpretation of the Constitution is to do so in the mindset of the founders, to kind of, I guess, pretend that you know for certain what everything meant.
Yeah.
When it was
unclear. Right, but they're idiots.
But
they're idiots.
Don't know.
Yeah.
So if they pretend they know for certain what everything meant, all that means is that they basically declare that they know everything.
And if that is really where those guys are coming from, then they are in favor of putting slavery back.
Kind of. I mean, Justice Scalia said some very scary things in a variety of cases. One of them was his statement. Oh, no, I've completely lost it. But
you can paraphrase.
About the criminals who then...
Well, yeah, that's one of them. He said that factual proof of innocence is no reason not to carry out a death sentence which has been rightly determined. So basically, if the court says you're guilty and we sentence you to death and you later prove your innocence, that's no reason not to go ahead and carry out the death sentence anyway.
Holy crap.
Yeah, that's one of the things he said. The other thing
and as scary as that is, it's clear that Bush can find worse people than that.
Oh, yeah. The other thing, and this kind of tells about his position as an originalist, is that he believes that it's the job of a judge, and he's making a very good argument here. I'll say he has a point. The job of the judge is to interpret the law and make a decision even when you feel that decision is wrong. Unfortunately, his position leaves out the possibility when the law is ambiguous and there's wiggle room.
Right.
That's when, at least in my opinion, it's the justice's duty to do justice. He's putting the law ahead of justice at all costs, and not allowing, not.
Well,
he claims he's not using that.
I can't agree with your take on that. I think that the right time for there to be evolution in the law is when the laws on the books are challenged on the basis of new understandings of what the implications are of what the system is that we've set up.
Right.
I don't think that when it should happen is when there's ambiguous laws. In fact, I don't think it should happen at all. Necessarily, I think it's a tragedy if we have a law that's ambiguous and a judge has to unilaterally come up with some interpretation. I don't think that's right. But I do think we have a system that is designed for people within it to be able to struggle with it and get it changed. Right?
Well,
There's ways to do that.
The Constitution was written.
Yeah, he's of the opinion that if you want something changed, you get people together, you vote, you make a law, you make an amendment. That it's not the duty of judges to change what an amendment means, but he's bypassing the point that it's up to the justices to determine the scope of amendments, the scope of constitutional law, especially when you have contradictions. And I realize the Declaration of Independence isn't a legal document, but when that is used to say that we believe that all men are created equal, and then you have a constitution which, for the purposes of a census, determines a white man to be worth 1 and a black man to be worth 3/5. Now you have a conflict in the intention, and there's room for judicial interpretation there without having to go through the process of making a whole amendment.
And you might want to point out that no one here is saying that.
No.
Well done.
I just think it's a rounding error. We should round those black people up to full people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We don't need to go into decimal places for human beings.
But yeah,
I don't think.
Well, the crux of it is that you end up living and thinking in the 18th century and denying the progress and the knowledge that we've gained in the last couple of centuries.
Yeah, because, I mean, however you want to interpret it, the reason they put black people are worth 3/5 of a person, you know, it wasn't an error. They had slaves back then.
Yeah.
Right.
And you don't,
there are implications of the system, right? There's implications of, you know, what this means for the way we're going to get along and how people are going to be treated. Just arise naturally from the other places in the document where it doesn't specifically single out some people to not be treated that way, right? And it's perfectly valid to go through those and say, you know, we can't justify amongst ourselves continuing to make an exception to the way the law is going to be applied to some people just because they're, you know, they have the wrong number of breasts or they have the wrong skin color. And anyway.
I think what Justice Breyer did, I considered a rationalization and his invention of a grandfather clause, but I think what he was really doing, and I don't claim to know for sure what he was thinking, but after reading his opinions in full, it seems that what he was doing was saying, hey, we've got all these monuments all over the country, in courthouses, outside of courthouses, even on the Supreme Court. We open meetings with prayers.
Yeah, and we shouldn't be freaking doing any of those damn things.
Yes. The majority opinion makes those same claims and say, hey, this is justification.
No, it's not justification. Just because you've been getting away with it does not make it justified. That is such utter bullshit.
That's like saying that since we can enslave Africans, we can also enslave Mexicans and our next-door neighbor and anybody we feel like it. I mean, you're using one mistake to justify further mistakes.
Right.
When the point is that none of it should be allowed. And this isn't just, I mean, religious freedom it benefits everybody, but this isn't just this isn't a matter of atheists being offended or, you know, having their feelings hurt.
No, it's a matter of atheists being treated as second-class citizens. Not just atheists. I mean, atheists are only in the equation because we fall into the percentage of Americans who are not Christians, right? Which is way more than the atheist, 7 to 15%, whatever, however you want to interpret that figure. It's way more than that. We got Buddhists in this country. We got Jews in this country. We've got Hindus in this country. We have Muslims in this country. We have Wiccans. We have Satanists. We have members of the Church of the Subgenius. All of those people are being discriminated against by the government when it puts its mark of approval on a Christian monument.
Yeah, I had a Christian that I've been talking to, or was talking to, he's no longer talking to me, tell me that he'd be perfectly fine with us putting the atheist Ten Commandments on the Capitol lawn as well. And not, since there is no such thing, is that there's a limited amount of lawn space available, and since you can't possibly allow everybody to put up a monument to everything they believe in order to show your neutrality, the only rational conclusion is to say, no, you can't put up any religious monuments at all.
Well, I think that an even more significant objection to the idea that the lawn around a government building is this zone where anybody can say anything, is not that there's limited space, because that varies, and they could set a limit to the size that monuments could be, and you could make it such that there'd be room for as many as you could ever possibly imagine. The real problem is, once that starts, the people who are offended by the idea that there's a monument on that lawn saying that, commanding them to worship some god that they don't feel like, right? They will set up something expressing their blunt opinion of the people who believe that it's okay to command them to worship that god. And then you cycle of verbal retribution. And that's what we don't want. We don't want courthouse lawns to become battlegrounds where everybody puts up their things. They're full of religious billboards cutting each other's product down.
Yeah,
that is the wrong place for that to happen.
I'm curious how some of those people would feel if they were entering a courtroom and, it was adorned with statues of Shiva.
We've had that. This has come up. This has come up in local cases where the local government has ruled, well, it's okay to have this Ten Commandments monument here because it's this place where anybody can say whatever they want. There have been cases where local weird cults, I can't remember the name of these guys, there was some weird pyramid cult that had its aphorisms or something, its list of principles that it wanted to post there. And as soon as they came in and said, we want ours too...
The Raelians, maybe?
It wasn't the Raelians. Oh. As kooky as they are, it wasn't them that time. As soon as that happened, the local government went back to the drawing board and said, what have we let ourselves in for?
Yeah.
So, we know what happens. It's just freaking insane. They want the right-wingers, the right-wing Christian evangelical fundamentalists want to have their way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in addition to the decision, go ahead, Russell.
Yeah, I'd like to read something that Justice Scalia said related to the case. Oh, you want to do it?
No, I was hoping you had it. Go ahead.
No, I do. This is from the dissenting opinion by Antonin Scalia. If religion in the public forum had to be entirely non-denominational, there could be no religion in the public forum at all. One cannot say the word God or the Almighty. One cannot offer public supplication or thanksgiving without contradicting the beliefs of some people that there are many gods, or that God or the gods pay no attention to human affairs. That would be deists. With respect to public acknowledgement of religious beliefs, it's entirely clear from our nation's historical practices that the Establishment Clause permits this disregard of polytheists and believers in unconcerned deities, just as it permits the disregard of devout atheists.
Wow.
And then he goes on to say, the three most popular religions in the United States, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, which combined account for 97.7% of all believers, are monotheistic.
Of all believers.
I just noticed that.
Yeah, Don actually brought that up.
I did not pay attention to that the first time.
This is statistical manipulation is what it is.
Yep.
Yeah, because I looked it up. The 2000 census said that over 14% of Americans claim no religion.
Right.
So with this very slick statistic, he just pretended that 14% didn't exist. Or rather, he said in the previous paragraph.
In his previous paragraph where he said it's okay to disregard atheists.
Yeah, let's throw out the people who don't believe. And of the people who believe, 97% of those are monotheistic. Right. So let's just leave it up.
Yeah, this is just horrible. But let's look at the other side of it now, right? They did say, what was it, the Kentucky case where you can't have the Ten Commandments in the courtroom?
Yeah. It was a display just outside the courtroom of a framed copy of the Ten Commandments, which was surrounded by a number of other documents, although not at first. What happened was somebody complained.
Right, and they surrounded with other documents to try to put it in a context that made it okay.
Yeah, it would fit the Lemon Law, which describes it a requirement of being in a predominantly secular environment or a part of a montage that as a whole would look secular. And they said,
we need the montage song from Team America. Yeah.
The problem was that there were documents, evidently, which showed that the purpose of this was obviously religious. And one portion of the Lemon test is to determine if the intent is primarily religious. So that was the justification that they used to shoot that down. This really doesn't... The Kentucky case doesn't really change anything. It does kind of reaffirm Lemon a little bit, but then the Texas case goes and institutes, I guess, some kind of grandfather clause.
No, there was, of course, some talk that they were going to revisit the Lemon law and see if they might want to change it, and they didn't.
But the monument here in Texas is another one of these ones that was put up by... Is it another one of the ones that was put up to promote the Ten Commandments movie? Right. The one here in Texas?
Fraternal Order of Eagles. Or
right.
FO for short.
Right. Boy, but just saying that that's the reason when it doesn't say on the back of the monument, hey, everybody go see the Ten Commandments when it opens on February 52nd, 1943. If it doesn't say that,
It's kind of coincidental. There's a little uncertainty as to whether or not this was directly related to the movie or not, because the Fraternal Order of the Eagles put this up as an attempt to minimize juvenile delinquency.
Yeah.
That was their intent. And one of the justices, I believe it was Breyer, I don't have the full opinions list in front of me, but I believe he said that is a secular intent. However...
If they really wanted to minimize juvenile delinquency, they should have put up a monument with the verse about the 42 children being eaten by bears.
Yeah. But, I find it hard to say that posting a religious document to minimize juvenile delinquency is a secular act.
Yeah,
now you're just making shit up.
Having a secular purpose is only one facet of the Lemon Law. It also has to be done, not specifically promoting a religion.
Well, Breyer also felt that it was not doing that.
It can have a secular purpose, but that still doesn't mean it passes.
Yeah, and Justice Breyer came out and made a whole bunch of statements that he believes justifies his opinion that it's a predominantly secular monument. Now, he did this in order to confirm with the majority opinion, yet the majority all came out and said, no, this is a religious document, and that's fine with us. So he's kind of in an odd position. But now
did they? No,
go ahead.
I shouldn't have read this thing myself, but I'll ask you since you did. Often I see the defense made that the Establishment Clause, since it says the establishment of religion, it's interpreted as the establishment of a single monolithic state religion, period, and that anything short of that is okay. Right? And by which I mean, and of course they don't come out and say this, but the clear implication of what a lot of people's defenses of that have been is that if we said the United States is a Christian and Judaic nation, that would be two religions, see? And therefore, under that interpretation, that would be perfectly okay.
Or
it's
why
perfectly
not Catholic
okay.
and Protestant? That's two religions.
Right. Some interpretation of that, the implications of their interpretation of that is that as long as the government is promoting more than one religion, it's all right.
Yeah.
Did they go there at all?
With Baptist and Southern Baptist?
Who knows?
But
who knows? I mean, the religions are so freaking
they didn't really
fucked up that they can play any kind of angle. They didn't refer to that in this?
No, they talked about briefly the scope of the Establishment Clause, and they didn't actually define. They didn't do it in terms of establishing a national religion. What they did was they used the Establishment Clause only in saying, hey, we've allowed A, B, and C, and they were all okay under the Establishment Clause, so we're going to continue and allow D.
But were they really okay under the Establishment Clause,
No.
or are they just historical precedent that was never challenged
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
That's exactly what they were, and they used it to justify it. They used buildings which have displays of the Decalogue, the fact that they open with prayers, all these things which really haven't ever been challenged or challenged.
Some of it has been challenged. Was it Under God on Money that was challenged once?
Yes. That's been challenged.
Yeah, but how far did that get? Do you know if it got to the Supreme Court?
I don't know, because I remember we did that story about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And, I don't know where it went, though.
But the closest challenge they've come was when they established the lemon law, or the lemon test for the three-pronged test.
Yeah.
And most of them, well, Justice Scalia doesn't seem to like the lemon test at all, and his big complaint...
Tough.
His big complaint is valid in the sense that we're witnessing it right now, where sometimes they use it, sometimes they don't.
Right.
And this wishy-washiness of the court over history was actually used as an excuse to continue to be wishy-washy.
Right.
I mean, it's...
Yes, Mary.
Well, I have a question, and I wanted to get y'all's take on it, because I'm wondering... These are obviously learned people on the Supreme Court.
Yep.
And I do not understand, except for their own personal religious beliefs as it relates to these monuments, how they can justify discriminating against anyone, and atheists in particular.
Well, I think their own personal religious beliefs are a big part of it. Certainly with Scalia, right? That is a big part of
definitely.
That is why he is willing to play fast and loose with the facts and not go to the Constitution, but to simply go to a laundry list of things people have gotten away with for his justification for why this is all right. And there are assumptions that are not just Christian assumptions, but they're very widespread assumptions in this country, and I've even heard some of these from atheists. Assumptions like religion is necessary to control the masses, and so we shouldn't get rid of it even if we could. Mm-hmm. And, the only angle I can think of to justify Scalia saying we can simply ignore atheists is if in his head there was this assumption that, well, religion is this thing that we have, that we need to have, that it's completely not questionable that we need to have it, and that some people don't use it is irrelevant, and their opinions don't count. Mm-hmm. And so there's got to be something going on in his head that says that there's no validity to the atheist position. It's not a valid alternative. It's simply an irrelevant refusal by some people to play ball.
Kind of. One of the things that Justice Scalia does, there's problems with his originalist position, which because you can trot out public and private correspondence between the founding fathers to show that the situation, whichever way you want it to be. There's documents from Thomas Jefferson.
As a matter of fact, I have something right here from James Madison, who said, "Who does not see that the same authority which can establish Christianity in exclusion of all other religions may establish with the same ease any particular sect of Christians in exclusion of all other sects?" That's crystal clear. He says that the government not only should not promote some particular religion, they shouldn't promote, at the very least, they shouldn't promote Christianity in general.
Yeah, but the people on the right who want to interpret the separation clause to mean it's all right as long as we are officially endorsing more than one religion can say Christianity and Judaism, which is pretty much what they do say, right? And therefore, we don't have a single monolithic state religion. It's Judaism and Christianity. That's two different ones. You can't get us for violating the Constitution by having a single monolithic state religion. Therefore, it's okay.
I'm not saying that that's not possible, but that's not the road we're going down with regard to what the opinions that were stated.
Okay.
One of the problems with the originalist thing that I was talking about is like with Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson, you can pull out documents, private correspondence where he is a Christian and says he's a Christian. You can also pull out documents where he sounds much more like a deist, where he calls the cross a grief engine and denounces a number of things about Christianity. He also redacted the New Testament and made his own little Bible that pretty much disregarded the supernatural elements and the claims of divinity and just stayed with Jesus' moral principles.
Yeah, because when you read that thing about how Thomas Jefferson says he's a Christian, in context he said, I'm a Christian in the only true sense, which is that I think that Jesus guy has some pretty good ideas.
Yeah, I think if most Christians or people who think that they're true Christians or whatever were to actually read all of Thomas Jefferson's writings, they'd say, ooh, this guy's not like any Christian I've ever, he's not a true Christian, but yet they'll trot him out and claim that he's a Christian, and that's the problem.
Sure, it's all opportunistic. Yeah, it's all opportunistic, whatever they can get away with, and it fits in with the general strategy of the right wing, which is to characterize everything as just opinion, and characterize side taking as that is the process of picking the opinion that appeals to your taste personally, ignoring facts, and then seeing how many people are on each side. Yeah. And whoever there are the most of, they get to have their way. And by doing that, they've cut off any discussion of what the actual facts are. And left it as simply, whoever can manipulate the most people with fear or prejudice or, whatever negative feelings they can evoke in them, whoever can manipulate the biggest crowd wins.
Well,
that is not the way it's supposed to be.
To quickly go back to what Mary had asked about, how these great legal minds can justify this, one of the things that continues to come up is nobody has an inherent right not to be offended.
I agree with that.
And if people are claiming that, the Ten Commandments, they respin it so that the claim is that the Ten Commandments offends them.
That's not the point. I am offended by a lot of things in Christianity, right?
Yeah.
I am offended, and I am offended specifically by having my government put up a monument or host a monument that orders me to be a Christian.
Well, see, that's the thing. They're claiming that it doesn't order you to be.
Bullshit!
It does.
I am the Lord thy God. You shall have no other gods before me. What else is that?
Well, see, the thing is, and this is from Justice Thomas. He says, in no sense does Texas compel Petitioner Van Orden to do anything. The only injury to him is that he takes offense at seeing the monument as he passes it on his way to the Texas Supreme Court library.
But hold on. I was going somewhere with this. I am offended by things in Christianity. That's one of them. I'm offended by the entire basis for the whole belief system, which is that human beings are ruined, we're all horrible and evil, and we all deserve to be tortured forever, and the only way we're not gonna be is if we join this club. Right? That offends me. But that's not the reason I think that the Ten Commandments monument should be taken off the courthouse lawn.
Right.
The reason why I think it should be taken off the courthouse lawn is the government should not be in the position, it's unwise and inappropriate for the government to be in the position of promoting one religion or any subset of religious views over others. Period.
Yeah.
The offense is there, but so what?
Yeah, he goes on quickly to, he need not stop to read it or even look at it or express support for it or adopt the commandments as guides for his own life. Their whole position is avert thine eyes. Mm-hmm. If you don't like it, just look away.
Yeah, sort of like Anita Hill should have just looked away when he put that pubic hair on the Coke can, if that was true, which I believe it was. I'm still mad about that, about Thomas being on the court in the first place.
Yeah. All right, but let's look at it from that perspective. So what is this like the defense of content on television, where people say, if you don't like it, turn it off? Is this like that at all?
No,
I would say no, because this is not private corporations putting up entertainment. This is the government hosting a monument that tells you what religion you have to be.
Or should be. Mm-hmm. Yeah, things they obviously aren't.
It is God's words, right?
It says, "Thou shalt not."
Right.
On something that is being presented as an official government endorsed thing.
I'm kind of playing devil's advocate.
Their only defense though is, well, it says that, but we don't mean it.
Yeah.
Then why is it there?
Yeah.
It's there because of the juvenile delinquency thing.
Yeah.
Fine. Damn it. I think that we need to be thinking up secularly purposed atheist monuments.
Already done.
Good plan.
You thought of one?
I'm going to propose that because they tried to make the statement that this was a museum setting. Which is absolutely absurd. There's 17 monuments on 22 acres. It's not a museum.
Or if it is, it's a museum that's in desperate need of a few more exhibits.
Yeah.
So you're going to help them out.
Yeah, I'm going to propose, and I'm going to take this to the ACA later, that we petition the legislature for permission, and we'll submit a design for a life-size statue and inscription monument to Madalyn Murray O'Hair.
Hey.
Who is a Texas citizen, a historical
Austin
figure,
history, sure,
who fought for and won a case that eliminated mandatory prayer in schools. I mean, how can you? There's no way to disclaim her historical status. Now, sure, she may have been the most hated woman in America at one point, but that's kind of the point.
Well, I mean, Rosa Parks was a hated woman at one point.
Yeah. But that was the idea that I had the other day. I don't think that it's. Well, I don't.
Yeah, but find a quote from Madalyn Murray O'Hair where she's talking about some completely non-atheism issue, right? She must have been quoted somewhere talking about economy or physics or some other thing, and you put that quote on there. And say, this is a monument to public education. It just happens to be Madalyn Murray O'Hair talking about how important public education is, but we want this monument so that for the secular purpose of promoting public education.
Well, I'd make the case that you could use any quote from Madalyn Murray O'Hair almost, and still make a valid claim that it's a secular purpose. And I'd rather not disguise
historical purpose.
Try and disguise the reason for doing it.
But I bet you anything they will turn it down if there's anything on it. Now, if it's just a statue of her, maybe. If there's any quotes on it, it's going to be spun as, well, this is promoting a religious purpose, because the excuse on the Ten Commandments monument is it's for
historical.
It's historical, and it's the secular purpose of juvenile delinquency.
Well, I mean,
if that's the argument that they use, you need to put something up there which is clearly a monument to an atheist, but which can lay claim to the same excuses they use. That's how you get it up there. And if they throw out your excuse, that means they have to throw out the excuse used for the Ten Commandments monument.
Well, I think you can come up with a really good secular quote that would not, kind of veil it.
And state that the purpose is. Of course, we're fucking it up right now by having an audio show, which was going to be recorded, where we're talking about how we're strategizing to get around the freaking, labyrinth of rules.
I think there's a legitimate case for her monument being included along with some of the others, because this is about Texas history.
I'm sure that out there somewhere there's something from the foe talking about the Fraternal Order of Eagles, talking about why they put up the Ten Commandments monuments. And it damn well doesn't have anything to do with juvenile delinquency.
Right.
I'm not sure that's necessarily true, because I wouldn't be at all surprised if the people that put that up believed that simply putting the magic words on a rock on the lawn of the courthouse would help juvenile delinquency. I wouldn't be surprised if they believed that at all.
Because a lot of juvenile delinquents frequent the state capitol.
Sure. But I'm just saying, the point to taking that step that you're talking about is to really take advantage of all the same loopholes they take advantage of. Because you want to win. You want to win and piss them off. Or you want to lose in a way where your loss proves that the Ten Commandments loses also. Well, I think if you don't literally find every single excuse that they had that you can take advantage of, and take advantage of them, then there's no point.
I would agree. The thing is, if the legislature says no, now we have grounds to get a new case for them to evaluate the scope. Because
but when it gets to that case, you want to have you want to be in a position of having advantage of all the same loopholes. So,
well, if I may, I think if Madeline were alive today, she would love to have a monument of herself.
I don't freaking care. You know, I'm not a big fan of Madeline Murray O'Hare. I think she was a loudmouth, horrible person. But I also think, you know, putting this in perspective, I think that for atheism to exist at all in the United States for quite some time, it needed to have a loudmouth, horrible person who was willing to stand up there and take the flack for it.
Take the death
which
threats
is fine. Else. And I'm glad that there was such a person, but not a big fan of her personally, and don't agree with a lot of what she said.
Right. And
that's not the issue here.
Yeah. But
I don't care.
Right, but here is the issue. I don't think that putting up another monument is going to help for the same reasons you all were just talking about, which is the fact that means everybody then is going to have a monument out there.
Let them.
Unfortunately, sometimes, Mary, no, I don't think it does. I think sometimes the only way you educate people is by giving them enough rope. And this is a giving them enough rope situation. They don't know. They're not aware that they have turned the Capitol lawn into this place that's going to be a battleground between people's monuments. Right? They don't know that that's going to be the effect. We're going to help them out. We're going to help educate them by showing them that that is what they have done. And when like the guys in that backed down when the cult came along with their pyramid power list of things they wanted to put up. Hello, Dennis. Guess where you're not? Guess where you are not on a Saturday morning when we have a show? And you're on the air right now, dude. You should be at the show. Goodbye. I'm on the show now. Goodbye.
Yay, Dennis.
All right. So he still could barely hear me.
He was on the show.
He was, sort of, in spirit.
None of you can hear him, but
what was I talking about? Just like the guys that backed down with their Ten Commandments monument when they realized what they had done, when the next group came along asking for theirs, right? That's sometimes how people learn. You tell them that's going to happen, and as long as it doesn't happen, they don't believe you.
I saw a news report yesterday. There are Christian groups around the country who are making duplicates of the commandment monument that's on our Capitol lawn to put up on their own because now it's okay. Now all those people who've been wanting to do it forever to push their religion. But that's for a religious
purpose. Shouldn't those ones get shot down?
Not until it goes back to the Supreme Court again. They gave everybody a license to go do this, and they're doing it.
I have to say I have no animosity whatsoever toward Van Orden for bringing this case, but
absolutely.
I definitely think it was brought at the wrong time. Because considering who's on the court right now, I have to say I'm not very surprised by this decision.
I think you should be looking at who's going to be on the court in like a month.
Yeah. Well, and that's not going to change. Guess what? I think we're going to get somebody even more loony.
But that's an argument for wanting to strike while the iron is maybe not hot, but at least warm.
Well,
that is an argument for having done it now instead of 20 years from now when there's another opening on the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Justice Breyer, if he'd have been consistent, we'd be all down on the Capitol lawn watching him tear that thing down.
Yeah.
It was a good gamble. With Senator O'Connor announcing her retirement on Friday, and a conservative Republican president and legislature there to appoint and confirm her replacement, I don't think it's likely that we're going to get another moderate like O'Connor. We're going to get another Rehnquist or Scalia.
Oh, and by the way, I need to make this disclaimer for our new audience. We are a presentation of the Atheist Community of Austin, which is politically nonpartisan. We have no problem with Republicans. What we have a problem with are ideologies that are not political parties, but the ideologies that damage our country and make it unsafe for people like us. That is the problem with George Bush, not that he is a Republican.
Right.
Because, that we've got a country full of judicial appointees that were appointed by Republicans and have been making some quite wise decisions in a lot of cases.
Some people who would be considered conservative Republicans on a lot of issues come out against this Ten Commandments thing because there are people in all walks of life, from all parts of the political spectrum who realize that neutrality is in the best interest of everyone. The government's neutrality toward religion. It's just...
Did you see that? Oh, go ahead.
A couple of chat room points. ThinkFest says, I don't want a Madeline to Madeline O'Hare. I want a monument to Thomas Van Orden.
Well, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Sean, who is running the Free Thought Radio, says that we have been on Free Thought Radio in reruns from time to time.
Hey, awesome! Well,
and
of course, we knew that some of our
and to remind
shows.
People that today is the first time that we are live. Going out on Free Thought Radio.
Thank you. Yes, this is our first live broadcast on Free Thought Radio.
Also, I'm sorry, there was something earlier on that ThinkFest also said that I wanted to throw in there. When we were talking about intent, the original intent of the Constitution, she said, I think that intent is very irrelevant. If your intent in making African people slaves is to educate and civilize them, that doesn't make it any less unconstitutional. And a local majority can't vote slavery back into legality either.
Excellent point, ThinkFest. Thank you.
And in the vein of reminding everybody that we're live, we'll be live again in 2 weeks again.
2 weeks.
Can I say again one more time in the same sentence? And Dennis will hopefully be here, and I won't have to talk so much. Because Dennis is fun.
Actually, I think you can say it's not a double negative if you say it. Is there such a thing as a double positive?
It just sounds really stupid for me to say again.
Double positives don't cause any logical problem with your sentence, do they?
Again, no again.
Right. That's fine.
It just sounds silly.
Yeah.
However, I ought to plug some other stuff.
Yeah.
The Atheist Community of Austin also has a weekly call-in TV show called The Atheist Experience.
Yes, which
has also gone out over Free Thought Radio.
That's in Austin, Texas.
On Channel 10.
Cable
on
access
Sundays.
Channel 10.
But we
now
have a web archive also.
The
Containing
TV show goes out over Free Thought?
The audio portion... Some older episodes of the TV show have gone out over Free Thought Radio. But if you want to listen to new episodes, go to atheist-community.org, click the TV show page, and you can download audio files of past episodes, just like you can download audio files of this show.
Right. Of course, the show's only audio, but you don't miss that much just hearing the audio from the TV show.
No,
it's just a couple of guys on camera.
Yeah,
you miss like expressions and stuff.
Occasional visual aids.
Yeah, you don't see people rolling their eyes.
Yeah, or holding up crazy, pamphlets and stuff. You miss that. And by the way, if I have this correct, Matt and I are going to be on the show. Matt's the host, and I'll be a guest co-host tomorrow.
Yeah, Russell's our normal host on the Atheist Experience, and I co-host about once a month. And tomorrow I'm filling in for Russell, and Jeff's going to be joining me, and we'll be taking a lot of calls.
And here's an excellent example. Mary, on radio, nobody can hear you jump up and down and wave your arms.
Well, I was just thinking about the topic we were just on about Republicans and how the show is not anti-Republican. It's just anti-beliefs that are discriminatory. It was interesting this week that there was a Zogby poll that came out that said 25% of Republicans said that if it turns out that George W. Bush lied about or misrepresented the reasons for us going to war in Iraq, they would want him they would want impeachment charges to be brought against him.
Right, and as I recall, the figure nationwide among all Americans is like 44% in favor of impeachment.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Yeah, which is impressive, particularly since it's absolutely freaking obvious that Bush lied to get us into war with Iraq. I think that's really that's impressive that we've gotten to where 44% of people in this country realize that that's bad. But it's not impressive enough. This is freaking incredible that I'm living in a country where the citizens would tolerate a president who pulled a stunt like that. 56%
after you
of
said
them.
We have no problem with Republicans.
I don't have any problem with Republicans. This is an issue. The issue is it okay to have a president who lies and gets people killed in vast numbers? It was bad enough when we had a president who lied about getting a BJ in the White House. Not in the White House. In the Capitol?
Oval Office.
Yeah, Oval
The Oval Office is in the Capitol, not in the White House, right?
Aren't they the same thing?
No, it's in the White House.
No, okay.
That was bad enough, and I think people were rightly outraged. It was right for people to be outraged at that. I don't think that kind of lie is on nearly the same scale as this one.
No.
I think it's
This is
nice.
an issue. I don't care that the guy's a Republican. If I found out that a Democrat did that, I'd want his ass impeached.
I think it's kind of nice. B.J. Thomas hasn't had a hit in years, and yet he got into the White House. So did you have more news?
I have, in fact, no news. This is a month-old news. Because, frankly, I want everybody to thank ThinkFest, who's in the chat room right now, because if it wasn't for her tapping me on the shoulder and pointing at the clock, I wouldn't be here at all.
Thanks, ThinkFest. Although I thought she... Oh, never mind. I thought she usually doesn't like you to tell her secret identity.
I didn't tell her secret identity.
Ah.
Nobody knows that she's super.
You're like reading so much stuff into my words today, Russell.
So you got some news items for us.
Well, while we're on the subject of Iraq and whether we should be at war there, I'd like to float a possible...
Actually, we're on the subject of whether we ought to tolerate a president who lies and gets tens of thousands of people killed and maimed. That's the subject we're on. Not whether we should be in Iraq. Whether we should be in Iraq or not, well, actually, whether we should have a lying president or not isn't really an atheist issue.
No.
But what?
But this is.
Yeah?
Evangelicals building a base in Iraq.
This would be a military base?
Just hang on. With arms outstretched, the congregation at National Evangelical Baptist Church belted out a praise hymn backed up by drums, electric guitar, and keyboard. In the corner, slide images of Jesus filled a large screen. A simple white cross of wood adorned the stage, and worshippers sprinkled the pastor's Bible-based sermon with approving shouts of Amen. National is Iraq's first Baptist congregation and one of at least 7 new Christian evangelical churches established in Baghdad in the past 2 years.
Would you people just freaking cut it out? God, that pisses me off.
Its Sunday afternoon service in a building behind a house on a quiet street draws a couple of hundred worshippers who like the lively music and the focus on the Bible. I am thirsty for this kind of church, Suhaila Tawfiq, a veterinarian who was raised Catholic, said at a recent service. I want to go deep in understanding the Bible.
Well, you're not going to get there by going to a Baptist church, moron. Christ.
Iraq's new churches are part of Christian evangelicalism's growing presence in several Middle Eastern countries, experts say. In neighboring Jordan, for example, the indigenous evangelical presence is growing and thriving, said Todd M. Johnson, a scholar of global Christianity at Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary in Massachusetts.
That's like the indigenous American Indian Christian population.
Yeah. There's not a lot of those, really.
Sure, it's different if your church is full of local people who individually, separately happened to get caught up in Christianity. If they then decide they want to have a church, that's one kind of thing. If you get freaking missionaries from the United States going over there and proselytizing to these people and getting families pissed off at us because Abdul suddenly one day decides he wants to know Jesus personally, that's another kind of thing.
Yeah.
To me, what would be more effective than a monument on the Capitol grounds is to have evangelical atheism. But instead of atheists trying to convert people to atheism, it would just be atheists who go out and talk to people about their religious beliefs and try to convince them that, well, you know, there are other ways to think. And it's not that we would be telling people you're wrong to believe what you believe, but just to show them a different perspective.
Here's where it gets complicated, because, of course, I think everybody has the right to say what they think. Right?
Yeah.
And I think that I would like people to be able to get away with that all over the world, not just here in the United States, in places like, Jordan and Iraq. I think that's good. But right now, it is clear that the United States is hated around the world, largely for this impression, not unjustified,
that we're nuts,
that we're freaking nuts about religion and making wars to try to give us the opportunity to make other people have the same religion that's most popular here. So, while I think that any missionaries in Iraq, they certainly have every right to say what they think here in the U.S., I would hope that they could get away with saying what they think there. The practical fact of the matter is they ain't helping with this problem that the world hates the United States.
Right, because whether official or not, they are acting as representatives of the United States, and clearly broadcasting what our intentions are. There's more to this article.
But Mary brought up this proselytizing issue, which is relevant to your article.
It is.
And I'd like to explore it more. And now on the subject of atheist proselytizing, I'm all for it. What do you think I'm doing, right? Of course, on this show, mostly we have other atheists listening to us.
And what I'm thinking is, instead of trying to convert people to atheism, to rather give them critical thinking skills that would maybe lead them to get away from religion, but then again, maybe not. But at least they would have that perspective of different ways to think, other than what their religion simply dictates to them.
I don't see anything wrong with that. But of course, the place where people ought to learn how to think is in schools.
Well, that's not happening.
And it's not happening. But it's awfully difficult to teach people how to think once they're out of their formative years.
Yes.
It's hard enough to teach them how to think when they're in their formative years.
Right.
So,
and it starts in the home, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I don't think atheist proselytizers are going to be invited into any Christian homes to teach their kids how to think anytime soon.
Although I found one who's willing.
Yeah?
Yeah, the guy that I've been communicating, or was communicating with by email, he teaches his kids about creationism at home, and I asked him, because he was wanting to get it into schools as an alternative theory, which it's not, but I asked him if he would be willing to let...
There's repeating once in a while.
I asked him if he'd be willing to let Richard Dawkins come in and explain to his children what he believes and why he thinks it's infinitely more reasonable than the story Daddy told him. And he said, sure.
Yeah, wow. But the reason why you will hear things like that is that these are people who believe who don't care what the facts are. Either because they don't believe there's any such thing, or because they believe it's not possible to know, or because they think their beliefs are more important than what the facts are, if they could get themselves to even turn around and look at that opinion that they have. Oh, look!
Hey, Dennis.
It's Denis Loubet. Yeah, you were on the show. You were on the show earlier twice, Dennis, when I tried to call you and you couldn't hear me.
Right. Oh, really?
Yeah.
They could hear me.
And now, you should of course feel terrible about not showing up on time.
Yes, I do.
Particularly since this is our first live show going out over Free Thought Radio.
Terribly sorry.
But I was late too. Though only by 5 minutes. We're talking about atheist proselytizing. Yes?
Huh. Okay, cool.
We were actually originally talking...
But to proselytize atheism, you need a better phone than yours.
It's not my phone. My phone's not the problem.
No?
I think you better check out your phone, sir.
No.
Well, what's the rest of Russell's article?
I was going to say, during the U.S.-led invasion in 2003, American evangelicals made no secret of their desire to follow the troops.
No, they didn't.
Samaritan's Purse, the global relief organization led by the Reverend Franklin Graham, who has called Islam an evil and wicked religion, and the International Mission Board of the Southern Baptist Convention, the country's largest Protestant denomination, were among those that mobilized missionaries and relief supplies.
Are these the people behind those two women who were kidnapped in, I think it was Afghanistan, and The local government said, look, we have a law here that says you're not allowed to proselytize in our country, so we're putting these women in prison. And they said, oh no, we're not proselytizing, this is so unfair. And then they were let loose, and first thing out of their fucking mouths when they got back on American soil is, ha ha, we thank Jesus for protecting us because we were there being missionaries in his name. Fucking liars. That's another thing. I think that it would be good if people could go to other countries and speak their minds and get away with it. I think that is the best situation and what we should hope for.
Sure.
But if there is a country that has a law that says that you're not allowed to proselytize there or they will imprison you, and you proselytize there and they imprison you, you should A, fucking not lie about what you were doing.
Mm-hmm. Stop whining.
And B, you should stop whining. Because you were asking for it.
I don't know. If I was over there being an atheist, and they arrested me and said, we'll kill you if you're here talking about being an atheist, I'd damn well lie about it.
I think that you should... no.
No?
I think not.
You would not lie if somebody was about to kill you.
These women were not going to be executed. So it's a different situation.
But in prison.
Then why did they lie?
They lied because they wanted to get let go.
Of course they wanted to get let go.
Yeah, and they lied. And it wasn't just them lying, it was an entire church that had sent them there specifically for the purpose of breaking the local law. Now, if they wanted to say, yeah, you're right, we were proselytizing here, and the law against proselytizing they have here is bad, and that we want world opinion to put pressure on this nation to let us go and not convict us for breaking their unjust law, that's a perfectly fine and honorable thing to say.
And I think you can probably get away with it.
And if it is a question of death, sure, okay, fine. If you need to lie to keep yourself alive, I understand that.
I think they could get away with it as long as they had said, okay, we broke your law, we don't agree with your law. If you let us go, we won't come back, and we won't be sending any more people.
Right, and in the meanwhile, we're going to get on the news media all over the world, and we're going to tell them what you're up to, and they're going to hate you. That's all fine.
That's all great, but unfortunately, that would be a lie because they'd send more people.
But even lying to protect your own life is not always good. If you're an axe murderer and you lie and say, "No, I didn't chop the skulls open on those people," then I think, no, you shouldn't be lying about something like that. But you should take your fucking desserts.
In that case, I think the problem is the axe murdering and not the lying.
Yeah,
I think the lying
should be expected to tell the truth.
We tend to be the people who believe that it is good to do this thing called situational ethics. And so I'd like to explore the situations whenever any kind of ethical question comes up so you can see where the rough bounds of the ethical position are.
I would also like to offer an alternative perspective from Manda, who thinks that it's good that there's Christians over there.
Really?
I mean, I've got in the chat room, the biggest blow to fundamentalism is to show that there is no consensus. A Christian presence in Iraq is therefore a disaster for the Taliban.
That's a good point.
It is a good point.
That's a good point, but we don't have any right to go into other countries and tell them what religion they should have or fuck with their religious situation. We don't have a right to do that in the first place. And when I was talking about that, I'm talking about the effect that has on our nation here. Because I'm not a resident of Afghanistan where I have a personal stake in what the religion is. I'm a resident of the United States where I have a personal stake in how my nation is viewed by other nations around the world. I might someday want to travel to Italy, for example. Where they are rightly dubious of the intentions of Americans. I might want that.
Well, not in the Vatican.
Sure!
Of course, then again, there's the view.
It's historical.
You have the right to go to another country and tell them what to believe, and they have the right to arrest you.
Well, there's again, it's a more complex issue. And you may have missed the beginning of this. There's the rights issue. And Mary brought up the question of whether atheists ought to proselytize. Well, I think we absolutely have the right to express our views and thereby change people's opinions. And in fact, I think that atheists who are against proselytizing but are willing to describe and explain their own views when asked, I think that that's something of a double standard. Because if you are willing to describe and explain your views, what you're doing when you do that is you are promoting those views.
Yes, but someone asked.
Sure.
Proselytizing means they come up to you unasked and put it in your face.
Okay, well, I'll get more specific. What about on our TV show? Nobody asked.
What about on our TV show?
Nobody asked. We have our TV show out there where we are expressing our views.
Well,
in what sense are we not
doing that?
But the whole purpose of the TV show is to interact with people, to have them call in and ask. Now we're prompting that, certainly, but we're not forcing anybody to tune into the program to be proselytized to.
But admit it. Aren't
could
you
also say
and again, there's limits to what I would say is fair and honest things to do when proselytizing. You know, they have this great law in France that I love to talk about, where if you find some person who is ill or suffered a family tragedy or is poor or has something else going bad in their lives, and you take advantage of that as a hook in order to get them to change their beliefs, that's a crime in France.
Like that.
And I think that's absolutely brilliant, and we need that law here. We need that law everywhere on the planet. But simply, being upfront about what your beliefs are and providing arguments to justify them when the situation comes up, even if you're not asked, but, somebody says some rude thing, that's not asking you to explain, but you have every right to explain. I think that that the idea that there's this one monolithic thing called proselytizing, and if you do it at all, you're just being like a Christian, and that's bad. I think that is a short-sighted view. I think we need to be more willing to be more public and about expressing our views and defending them. And I think when we do that, we should accept that the consequence, even if unintended, of that is some people might actually be persuaded.
I think Mary was going to ask this about being honest if we were actually trying to convince people when we're on the show. Absolutely.
That's right.
If I have no other reason, yes, I'm trying to put a pleasant, positive faith on atheism and promote the separation of church and state. But when I'm on the show and I bring a topic or I discuss something with someone, my purpose is to convince them of the benefits of rational thought, to show them.
And this is our TV show we're talking about. It's not even an issue on the audio show, because we know that 99.5% of all people that ever listen to this show are atheists. But the purpose of the TV show is something other than proselytizing, right? We are not there for the purpose. Yeah, we're not there for the purpose of, because the show would be very different if that was the purpose.
We cover a lot of ground.
We're not entirely not for proselytizing, though.
No.
Right. If as a result of us explaining our position, because we're in this unenviable place in the United States where most people don't understand what atheists are, and all they've ever heard of them is what they heard from the pulpit, right? We're in a position where we need to get people to understand what we are. And if in the course of doing that we actually make sense to people, well, that's fine. But that's not the purpose.
Right.
We would do a very different kind of show if that was the purpose, I think.
Yeah.
They all have big white hair and
every episode would be a class.
Going.
We would be more like a cult.
No, it would be more like, our show would be more like a class where, okay, everybody, today we're gonna all right. How much time we got left? First time we gotten here
5 minutes.
Gotten here late. 5 minutes.
Yeah, it went fast.
Yeah.
And we played musical chairs.
We had 2 topics today. Yep. That's unusual.
Well, they're big ones.
They are.
Yeah, they're very.
Is there more on your news story there about Iraq?
I think that's enough. Iraq. I would like to say, if you don't mind me launching, actually going back to the first topic for a minute, that the Ten Commandments.
Ooh, yeah.
These emails have started. The emails have started going all over the place again, using these quotes from the founding fathers that are either out of context or made up to indicate that they were very Christian. And a lot of the way to deal with that is, first of all, a bunch of them are bogus. Look up David Barton, and he actually seems to have made up a bunch of stuff. And another thing you'll find a lot on those lists is that they talk about the United States government promoting religion, except it is always something that they did before 1791, which is what the Continental Congress did before they had a constitution that said you can't do that anymore. So keep an eye out for those.
Yes, and I have heard from fellow atheists that some of the quotes that we've got on our side are also bogus.
Yes.
Or out of context. So I wish I offhand knew of a great resource that was researched, where we could definitely get accurate in context statements. But just be aware when you're standing up for this that you need to be cautious about what you say also.
A good resource would be nice, but far too much emphasis is placed on what the Founding Fathers said. Does it really matter? I mean, are we saying that they got it right? I mean, these people who were in favor of slavery and considered blacks to be worth 3/5 of a human, can't we also look at it and say, it doesn't really matter so much what the Founding Fathers says. What matters more is what we've learned in the past 200 years and the progress that we've made. We know things now, and we have different values of
it. In a way, it doesn't matter because those guys weren't like our popes or anything. But in another way, it does matter because while it's possible to change the Constitution, it's specifically set up to not be easy.
Right.
And so, for better or for worse, the way that they set things up at the beginning very largely affects what we do today.
Yeah, I'll add that if you're having a discussion with somebody who believes that that Christianity is, but pretty much by definition, almost all Christians, if you're talking with somebody who believes that Christianity is the best religion and we all ought to have it, right, and that not having it has universally has led to a lot of bad things, and they believe that the Founding Fathers were Christians and meant for this to be a Christian nation, you're by definition talking to somebody who's not going to respond to you saying, but don't you think it doesn't really matter what the Founding Fathers said and we ought to go with what we've learned? Because those people have not learned that thing.
I agree. I think it's good to have the ammo, and I think it would be good to have a good source. But I also think that there's a valid direction for us to take to start moving away from the Founding Fathers.
I think what
we
Mary
can show
said,
them the ignorance of their position.
I think what Mary said was the most useful thing, which is promoting critical thinking. How to think is something we still might be able to get their attention on. We're not going to be able to get their attention if we go straight for the jugular and say, which is not that we should.
Say, here's our better logic.
Not that we should be shy about saying what we think the facts are, but that at least. Russell, do you want to talk about that email that Jenny is involved in the last couple of minutes of the show?
In the last couple minutes.
Is there no time?
Not really.
But listeners to our show will remember that Russell put on his wife's dress, metaphorically speaking, and stepped in for her on an email debate she was having online with some fundamentalists.
I argue for her on a forum that's mostly women, and I would venture to say largely Southwestern housewives who love Bush and religion. And one of the things that I've noticed that they do a lot is that when you corner them on some logical point, they'll retreat to a position of saying, well, that's your opinion, and I have my opinion, And who's to say which is right?
Right. And I think that there is room. Russell insists that these women are just too dumb and out of it to be able to get this point. But I think where we need to be hammering is, when you get to that point in a discussion with one of these kind of people, go ahead and say, well, wouldn't you really like to know? I agree with you that it's really hard to tell the difference between opinions. But there are potentially ways of making good distinctions between those, and don't you think it's worth the effort to figure that out? And then get off the subject and get into a discussion of what knowledge is, where it comes from, how we validate it, right?
Yeah, to stress that just because there are two opinions doesn't mean they're both equally valid, and that there are ways of determining which one is more valid, which one is more likely.
If it just comes down to a tug of war between people who know nothing but what their own opinion is, it's a tug of war between two people who have nothing but their own made-up beliefs, and that's not helpful. All right, thanks for listening, everyone. We will be back in 2 weeks here on Free Thought Radio.
And if you are... hurry! Confused. I'm sorry. Check out our website, www.atheist-community.org, for replays and the latest information about how to connect to the chat room and stuff.
And we will leave you with what is usually our opening theme, but we didn't play it this time because I was late. Bye.
Bye, everyone.